Hi, I'm Larry Hannan. I was at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial at Cecil Field today. It was a surprisingly festive atmosphere for most of the day until the funeral procession came by, and then the mood changed to very somber all at once. As they drove by, I actually looked behind me, and these two dogs that had been barking for the last half hour, even they were quiet. They were watching the funeral procession. It was so quiet, no one was talking at all. And this stayed the same way as the hearse drove through the memorial, turned around, and went back out onto New World Avenue. And then the spell was broken, and people started to leave, and they were, giving each other hugs, patting each other on the back. And it was really a remarkable morning, just in terms of people interacting, talking. It was surprisingly, I think if Captain Speicher saw this, I think he would appreciate it himself.
I'm Mary Maraghy, and I was out at Lakeshore United Methodist Church this morning for the memorial procession. Scott Speicher was a member at the church before he was deployed. Whether people knew him or not, you could tell Scott Speicher was a part of that church family. A lot of people had never even met him, but they came out to support him. There's a granite memorial in his honor on the church grounds. A lot of people were stopping to take pictures of that. Very festive, friendly mood. A lot of church members who hadn't seen each other in a while, hugging, chatting, catching up with each other while they were waiting. Then when the procession came by, it was dead silence, almost eerie. And then, after they went by, they went right back into church reunion mode, laughing and hugging, and everybody said they really felt like this was closure for the family. They were relieved. They were celebrating.
I'm Timothy Gibbons. I started out the day at Jacksonville Naval Air Station and then went over to the cemetery where Captain Speicher was buried. Both cases, obviously, there were many veterans starting out the day at the naval station. The streets were lined with sailors, some Marines, some people who actually served with Captain Speicher, and they all felt it was very important to come out and say their final goodbyes to a member of the naval family. Over at the cemetery, it was a very somber mood. When it ended, people walked away very thoughtful, it seemed. As I was talking to them, there was a realization of people thinking about what this actually meant. In Orange Park, where he was buried, where he was living, there was a very personal connection of people who were, his neighbors, his friends, people who went to church with him, who knew him not just as a fighter pilot, not just as somebody in the news, but as a real person who they missed.
I'm Bridget Murphy, and I was reporting today on the procession from the Veterans Memorial Wall. And the thing that I noticed was that no matter who was there, it was very personal for everyone, from the politicians who made very brief speeches to the uniformed military people who understand what war is, to the mothers and fathers whose children are going to grow up in a free country, to the uniformed civil servants, many of whom know what it's like for someone who wears a uniform to die in the line of duty. And it was striking to see so many people from the Jacksonville community come together.
My name is Jacobsohn. I'm a photographer with the Florida Times Union, and today, covering the Speicher procession, I was out at Forrest High School, and then after Forrest High School I moved on to Blanding Boulevard near Jacksonville Memory Gardens. I noticed that a lot of people at the high school just wanted to be out there because a lot of people went to high school with Speicher or knew people who attended school with him. There was points where I thought when the procession went through, I thought people would actually burst out and not full out cheering, but clapping and hoorays, which actually I guess was kind of an odd emotion to sense. But people seemed happy, and I think they were happy because he was home. They have answers now to something that the family had sought after for such a long time, as well as the city, that 18 years, he finally have answers. I think they were pleased that he was finally home.
Hi, I'm Jeff Brumley, and I was stationed down at Bay Street near where it intersects with Liberty Street near the sheriff's office and not too far from the courthouse and some of the shops downtown. And I was down there around 8:30, 9 o'clock this morning as people began to gather because they knew that the procession was to come by twice, actually, right by there, once on its way to the memorial wall and once on its way back. And as the morning got later and later, more and more people started showing up. I would guess that by the time that the procession actually went by, there were probably 200 people altogether. A lot of the people I talked to, they were wearing red, white, and blue clothes. And if they weren't wearing red, white, and blue clothes, they had something like a flag in their hand or bunting or a hat or something. Or there was a group from the state attorney's office that had a sign saying, "We salute Scott Speicher." Some of the people I talked to expressed two kinds of emotions, basically sadness and sort of closure, I guess you would say. Sad that, this had to happen to Scott Speicher, that it did happen, that he was missing for so long. But glad that his family finally had closure and knew where he was and that he was home. Other people said that they were really glad to see that Jacksonville had turned out in such big numbers, and it sort of encouraged them, and they felt like it might even bring the community closer together in some ways.
I'm Jim Schoettler, and I was at Forrest High School, which is where Scott Speicher graduated in 1975. There were about 500 people that had gathered outside the high school on Firestone Road, stretching from 103rd to actually south of the school. They began gathering about 9 o'clock. The first couple actually went to school with Speicher. They were in his class. Al and Cynthia Silas actually married and been married for 24 years, and they brought a yearbook with Speicher's picture in it. They remembered him. They loved him. They thought he was a great guy. Same mood was found throughout. Most people felt that it was great that someone could actually pay their respects to Speicher, the fact that he was brought home. The one thing that really struck me is that there's a lot of chatter, people meeting each other, hugging, talking, and this and that. As soon as the procession came by, it became silent. And the silence was broken by one woman's cry in the crowd, and she simply said, "Scott." It's very touching, it's very moving, very patriotic. And I think for a lot of people it was a real catharsis to be there.